Alrighty, my friends. Alrighty, my friends. Welcome back to the show. We got a couple of minutes here, about 8 minutes according to my math. So I'm glad I didn't go too long on that one segment in the beginning. Now, so let me recap. So we're going to discharge, take out the old refrigerant from the system. We're going to pull a vacuum, and the vacuum is going to be, it's going to have to get to 29 inches of mercury. And then once it gets to 29 inches of mercury, that is when the clock is going to start. And we are going to pull this vacuum on the system to boil the moisture out, because water boils at 54 degrees Fahrenheit at 29 inches of mercury. Okay. Now, what's going to happen is that somebody may be asking in their mind, can I leave the vacuum pump on too long? No, you cannot. So if you had your own charging station on your farm and you wanted to leave it on all night long, you're not going to hurt anything, all right? You're just going to have it nice and clean out of you're going to just eliminate all of the moisture. But the key is to have it at least 30 minutes on 29 inches of vacuum. Now, an experienced operator of a AC air conditioning equipment, service equipment, will say, hey, it took me 40 minutes to get down to 29 inches. So the system is big, it's got a lot of moisture in, and what they're going to do is they're going to maintain it for longer than 30 minutes. Okay? So that's something that you have to keep in mind, and that's the finesse of understanding what's going on. Then, before we get into the filling of the system, let's discuss the next step, what you want to do. So now you're satisfied. The person is satisfied, whether you're doing it or you're having a shop do it, or the implement dealer, or car dealer, whatever. It makes no difference. The procedure's the same. I always say whether it's a combine or a Cadillac. It's just the amount of refrigerant you're going to use, the type of refrigerant, and the type of refrigerant oil. Otherwise, it's 100% the same. All right. So now the proper protocol would be to get it down. So you evacuate, you boiled out the moisture, and then what you're going to do is you're going to leave the lines connected and you're going to shut off the vacuum pump because you want to do a leak test on it, right? Now, because you could have a slow leak, right? An O-ring that's leaking, a seal in the back of the compressor. It's like a slow leak in a tire, because if you had a major leak, you won't be able to pull a vacuum on it. Right, so now what you're going to do is you're going to shut the compressor off and you're going to leave the vacuum hoses connected to the system, and you're going to ideally, again, as long as you could leave it on there, the better. All right. The fact of the matter is that there's a balancing act like soil fertility, right? The fact that, I mean, the guy who's doing this in the shop and implement dealer, he's not going to leave it on for 3 days, right? Because he's got to get the system filled up, you back, and get your money, which is only what's right for business, right? So, but you want to at least leave it on there for 10 or 15 minutes. So the vacuum pump is off and the system has to hold. All right. If you have a very, very slow leak, a minute leak, it's going to start to bleed down maybe in 15 minutes, but maybe not. So it's not 100% indicator, but it's a very good indicator. In other words, that if it starts to leak down in 10 or 15 minutes, then you know that you have a problem and there's no use putting refrigerant in it because it's going to leak out. All right, it's going to leak out over time. So the thing is that, and what I mean over time, probably over a day or two or a week or something. It's not going to last a long time. So now you're going to have to find the leak. Historically, sometimes the leak is just a Schrader valve. Sometimes it's a seal on the compressor or the system. Wherever there is a connection on the lines, there's an O-ring. It could be, especially living in a rural area, agricultural area, is that you could have popped a little pinhole in the condenser. Remember, the condenser we discussed last week is right in the front of the tractor, the truck, the semi, whatever it may be. So it's right in the airstream of that, and you may have had a pebble hit it, or it corrodes also from road salt. So you now have to find the leak. So, but I want you to just realize that because you shut the vacuum pump off for 15 minutes, you're pretty good, right? But it's not golden, right? If the system starts to blow, well, I start to blow warm. In other words, its discharge temperature from the duct starts to go up, right? Then that is going to be indicative of a leak. Now, keep in mind, which is confusing to a lot of people, is that, remember, we discussed it last week, there's the compressor There's the evaporator, which is underneath the dashboard. There's the condenser that's in the front of the what we call the airflow. It could be on a combine right on the side where the fan is. It makes a difference in the airflow stream. And then there is, on a modern system, some sort of orifice valve, which is a refrigerant regulation valve. On an older system, it could be called a throttling valve or an expansion valve. So you have all of those components in this system along with the compressor. Now, what is going to happen on all AC systems is that if the I hate to keep using the word system is low on refrigerant, what's going to occur in most instances is that the evaporator is going to ice up. And the indication of an evaporator icing up is, let's say you're going across the field, you do everything is nice, working beautiful, all right, and now you notice that the discharge temperature from the duct, that's what we mean the discharge temperature, is starting to go higher, right? It's going high. So, geez, it doesn't seem as, maybe it's a sun load, what have you, right? What's happening is the evaporator is starting to ice up, and that is a hallmark, the hallmark of a system that is low on refrigerant. Now, you may say to yourself, Hot Rod, you're crazy. How could it be low on refrigerant and cause ice? Well, I don't want to get into the thermodynamics of it. Just trust me. And it has to do with the pressure versus its ability to absorb moisture. Okay? Because we could do a whole physics lesson on that. But if your wife tells you, hey, honey, I'm going to town and the air conditioner's blowing nice and cold, the longer I ride the discharge, she won't say discharge temperature, it's starting to blow warmer and warmer and warmer, all right? That's a system that is usually historically low on refrigerant, all right? So it starts off cold and and what's happening is that the ice is forming and it's not allowing the evaporator, all right, to be able to absorb the heat from the vehicle. We'll leave it at that. The machine, the vehicle, whatever it happens to be. All right. So keep in mind, we only have a couple of minutes left here. Actually, not even, about a little bit more than a minute. So remember, you have to service the system. Now, probably in the audience, somebody's thinking, say, well, how often do I have to service it? Well, you should probably service it on a new piece of equipment or a new vehicle. You should probably service it every 3 or 4 years. And as the vehicle or piece of equipment gets older, so if you did 4 years, 5 years the first time, then maybe cut that down to 3 years. But also, more importantly, that if you ever have a hole in the system, let's say you had a leak or you had a bird strike or an accident, is that you're going to have to also change that desiccant when you fix that system. You're going to have to change it because that desiccant absorbs all the moisture from the atmosphere, even if it was open for a day, and you're going to put refrigerant in it, and it's going to start to create acid, and you're going to have a whole bunch of problems. So over time, it's not going to happen overnight, but over time, it's going to turn. So you have, whenever the system has been open, you need to change that desiccant bag. So I want to thank you so much for listening, and I want you to know that the Hot Rod Farmer is pulling for you, the American farmer and rancher, and my beloved, beloved America. Be safe, stay cool, and please be kind to all animals.